eventually, their friends and family approached us and said, "Look, they're so calm now. They're so cool now. Can we learn this too?" The one thing that everybody learns to deal with their emotions without fear. That's what we call burnout. That's when people cannot get up anymore. The really cool thing is that those exercises are very logically built. So people can, after a while, when they're good at them, they can do them for the rest of their lives.
The difference in rehearsal rooms of not working with stressed people or people with constant anxiety is immense. The creativity is astounding. Such a driving motor to share this work with so many other people is when I'm not in stress. So I have more space then. That means I gain more tolerance. I have more space to help other people, because if I'm stressed, I can't help anyone.
Welcome back to FlavRReport, part of dailyovation.com. I'm Joe Winger. Today we're continuing our conversation, part of the series, with Stephan Perdekamp and Sarah Victoria from the Perdekamp Emotional Method, PEM. We spent a lot of time talking specifically about actors and performers, and now we're talking about behind the scenes of the industry, producers, writers, directors, etc. But what's really important is PEM isn't just for these creative people. It sounds like it's much more wide than that. Can we talk about, I'm going to call them the average person, the everyday person, how PEM can help someone with their emotion, with their stress, with their feelings?
Yeah. So maybe just to explain how this happened. So when we started working with people, actors, eventually their friends and family approached us and said, "Look, they're so calm now. They're so cool now. Can we learn this too, please?" And so we started to give courses for non-actors, and we eventually built up a whole course system with 500 seats sold every term for everybody. And the one thing that everybody learns and that they all want is to deal with their emotions without fear, without the idea that they're not going to lose control or that something terrible will happen if they show emotions. But there are specific things that we found out. For example, stress. When you look at stress and burnout, psychology knows now that stress is basically a jammed system of fight and flight responses. In our language, that means fight is the aggressive pattern. So we try to solve a problem by pushing through it. And flight is the fear pattern. So we try to avoid that situation, right? And like if you're in a job, for example, you can't flee. You can't just say, up and go and say, "Look, sorry, I'm not solving this problem." And so you are stuck with your body being in fear. At the same time, you have to solve this problem. And those two forward movements, so those two triggers trying to address the same muscles, rest in that movement. And what now happens in biology is that if you can't successfully solve a problem emotionally, the first response to the body is to throw more energy at it. Yeah. So if you try to, you want to go through a door, but it's jammed, you're going to use your depressive pattern and try to, shoulder the door open. If that doesn't work, you don't stop easily. You will just do it with more force. You will try several times more and check whether this opens. That's the biological reaction. And in this case, because those movements are arrested, what you do is that you invest similarly in both patterns stronger, which means that they jam better. Right. And so we're caught in a long-term jamming system, which sort of uses up more and more of your energy. And this will get to a point where your mind gets engaged, and thinking of needing to go to work stresses you already in the morning. Right. Because your subconscious knows how your body will feel all the time. And then a little bit, if that goes on longer, what happens is that the subconscious learns that getting up to go to this job means I deplete myself. So it loses the conviction to solve this problem, and it doesn't supply the energy anymore. So your automatic, subconscious system decides, no, we're not going to throw more energy on this problem. That's what we call burnout. That's when people cannot get up anymore because, you think, okay, I should get up to work, and the body says, we're not coming with you. Sorry. So it stops supplying all those little movements that you need to get up properly. And without those little movements, all the muscles that don't supply support to this movement become dead weight. And so suddenly, and that's what people with depression and burnout, talk about, everything's heavy. It's really like you're carrying another body onto the toilet. And you sit there with that weight, and then you have to go make breakfast, and your arm has double weight. And you try to smear that bread, but it really feels like an extra task, right? And so where our work comes in is that we can very directly address both patterns. So we can calm the system down with exercises to let go of emotional movements. And then we look at the aggression pattern and say, okay, let's look at this pattern and just drive that a bit. Just make a couple of exercises that make you feel successfully aggressive again. And then we stop and deplete again. And now we look at fear and we do that successfully, right? A couple of times. So that subconscious says, actually, I'm working. This works. I just need to separate it, right? And the really cool thing is that those exercises are very logically built. So people can, after a while, when they're good at them, they can do them for the rest of their lives. So whenever they're stressed, so they have clear exercises that solve the aggression pattern and the fear pattern, and that which helps them deplete their energy. So we equip them basically to deal with stress.
And I just wanted to add, from a human being and performer point of view, the amount of stress I could get rid of and release from my body in the past 20 years, is just, I don't know the word even for that. It was a lot, and I could not do the amount of workload that I have if I would not have the exercises to be able to constantly actually release tiny little movements that people usually discard, right? That's the stress. So if it accumulates, you end up, at night, you come home completely tired and exhausted because you're not releasing those little movements that usually jam each other. And what I found, what is so, again, such a driving motor to share this work with so many other people, is when I'm not in stress, so I have more space then, that means I gain more tolerance. I have more space to help other people, because if I'm stressed, I can't help anyone. And that's what I really, the difference in rehearsal rooms of not working with stressed people or people with constant anxiety is immense. The creativity is astounding. Whereas we always think like, oh, we have to, as actors, be, under a current of stress all the time, anxiety and, feeling unsafe. And it's just, I experience the opposite, and I love working that way. Yeah.